Good evening and welcome to the November 10th, 2008 special meeting of the Civil Service Commission. May we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Gantis.
Present.
Commissioner Manukian.
Here.
Commissioner Carrion.
Here.
And for the record, Commissioner Coleman, Commissioner Devine are absent.
Next.
Reading of the minutes.
Any motion?
Move to approve and dispense.
Second.
Motion move in a second. Can we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Gantis.
Yes.
Commissioner Manukian.
Yes.
Chair Carrion.
Yes. No oral communication. What's next?
Recruitment and examination status report.
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, this item reflects the current recruitment activity here at the City. We have listing by staff member of the recruitments they're working on. If you have any questions on these, I'd be happy to try and answer them.
Any questions? No. What's next?
Eligible list established.
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, this memo represents the eligible lists that have been established since our last meeting. As you can see, we have 6 processes that were completed, all of them being promotional, except for one that was promotional and open. The report lists the total number of applications received as well as those that ultimately made it to the eligible list. If there's any questions you have, I'd be happy to try and answer them. This is a note and file item.
Any questions? Next, please.
Revised class specification for approval, forensic specialist.
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, this is a revision of the class specification for the forensic series. The purpose of this revision primarily is to raise the minimum educational standards for the position. A variety of reasons for doing this, but one being would help with the accreditation that the lab is currently seeking to begin requiring bachelor's degrees. In addition to that, I think we've raised this with you folks before, that there are no shortage of candidates for these positions any longer. We're seeing better qualified people with a good, solid educational background, probably having something to do with a very popular TV program. With that, yes. With that, we have the series for your approval. I do have some staff from the police department. Mr. Kwan is here, as is Ms. Hunanian, and our forensic supervisor, Debbie Stivers, is here as well, if you have questions.
Yes. Quickly, I agree. I see where it says you've raised the standards, and I don't see anywhere in here where it says a bachelor's degree is required. Or maybe I missed it.
It's in there.
It is. Okay.
It's in there. I saw it.
Okay.
Move to approve.
Second.
Move in a second. May we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Gantis.
Yes.
Commissioner Manukian.
Yes.
Chair Carrion.
Yes. What's next?
Gentlemen, if I could clarify that, it does say bachelor's degree. However, a substitution would allow, a substitution of 5 years of relevant experience would allow for.
Is that what it was before for the substitution or the associate degree? 2 years, I see. Yes. That's fine. Perfect.
Okay. So there was a motion, there was a move, and there was a vote. Was there a vote? Okay. Next.
Class specification for approval, Assistant General Manager, Utility Financial Planning and Risk Management Services.
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, this item is a new class specification for the classification of Assistant General Manager, Utility Financial Planning and Risk Management. That sounds like a mouthful, but it's a very, very important function within GWP. I think you're all aware from probably a few months ago we had a revision with where the classification of Assistant General Manager was established, and we proposed a classification to deal with the water section, the supply section, the electrical section, and also the general administration. We're looking at adding a classification relating to the whole financial area involving financial planning, both risk management. Currently, there is a small work unit dealing with all the financial aspects of this utility, which brings in a lot of money, as you're well aware. There are some very important business functions that are needing to be addressed, which Mr. Steiger, who is still relatively new with us, has recognized the need to really enhance the financial end of this by elevating this position to an assistant general manager position. A lot of it deals with some hedge strategies, dealing with risk management, and really the oversight of a lot of a lot of money and a lot of deals relative to power purchases and that sort of thing. So rather than me try to explain it, I could have Mr. Steiger or Ms. Klein address any questions you may have. Otherwise, it is here for your approval.
Any questions?
I'm okay with it.
Okay, any motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
The motion and a second. Can we have roll call, please?
Commissioner Gantis?
Yes.
Commissioner Manukian?
Yes.
Chair Karian?
Yes. Next.
Revised class specification for approval, fire engineer, fire captain, and fire battalion chief.
Sure.
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, this is a revision of the specifications for the fire, what we would call the promotional series, beginning with engineer, captain, and battalion chief. The two lower positions are represented by the GFFA. The fire battalion chief is represented by GMA, Glendale Management Association. This revision is to update the spec from an effort that was made 4 years ago. And that effort back in 2004, I will say, was a somewhat ambitious plan to elevate not only the educational standards for all of these positions, but really the requirement that candidates for these positions take a number of classes in both fire management, tactical areas, and technical areas. I say it was somewhat of an overly ambitious plan, that we really established some requirements that were far beyond anything that we're seeing in the labor market. And it got to the point where we were, in fact, having difficulty finding candidates internally who would meet these qualifications for a variety of reasons, most of which had to do with scheduling these classes and the ability of people to take the courses that were then required for the position. And you'll probably recall a few times we've had to bring these bulletins to for your approval to modify some of those class requirements to one degree or another. What we've tried to do is bring these specifications back to where they were, not so much where they were before 2004, but more realistic than what the industry standard is requiring. There's been a lot of thought put into this by both the Human Resources Department, the Fire Chief, and the employee associations. And as you can see throughout the course of these three specifications, you'll see some slight modifications to, again, primarily those class requirements. With that, this item is for your review and approval. We do have Chief Scoggins here, Ms. Hunanian, to answer any questions you may have.
Sir Gantis, Commissioner Gantis.
I do have a very specific recollection of this, Mr. Doyle, and I'm a little uncomfortable without really some explanation of why I understand every time you've come to us, you've asked for exceptions, and I don't have a problem with the exceptions, but now we're doing it for everybody, and we won't see it on a case-by-case basis, and that concerns me. That we may, I mean, I don't have a comparison to the labor market. I'm sure that's true, but I don't want to see us in a position where we're not getting the most completely trained fire people that we can do, and but I can be convinced, but I know that I'm not prepared to vote on it this time based on what we have here.
And let me just add to that, Chief, while you're walking towards the microphone. I have a concern. It says completion of Smith System Driver Awareness Course and completion of Fire Command 1A and 1B. How soon, when, within 24 months of the date? I'm not really sure how soon do they have to complete the Smith System Driver Awareness Course?
They would have to, Commissioner Abakarian, they would have to complete those courses before they're eligible to even take the exam. The courses without dates next to them means that they have to have completed those already. The courses with dates next to them means that by that date they would have had to complete those courses.
I think we should change the language. It says System Smith Driver Awareness Course completed.
What are you talking about?
It says completion of the Smith System Driver Awareness Course and completion of the Fire A and B, and the Chief just explained to us that has to be completed by the time they're actually applying for this job.
Right.
And if they're supposed to be completed, why don't we just say Smith System Driver Awareness course completed.
Graduate or?
Graduate.
What do you do from that? I see what they did. Excuse me,
Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Abkarian. What they did is you just removed dates and left the word completion, which I think Commissioner Abkarian's correct from a grammatical standpoint. It doesn't. I mean, I know why you did it, and that's fine, but I think it does need to be re-grammatized, if you will.
So, Ms. Lonnie, if you can just change them to show that they have to be completed, have to have been completed before they actually take that, then that would fix that. Because right now it doesn't say, it says completion, and that might mean, within 5 years, within 2 years, within...
Do you graduate from those? Is that what you would use the word?
You receive a certificate for completing those courses.
Certificate of...
40-hour courses.
So it's certificate of completion
Yes.
of the Smith System Driver Awareness course.
Yes.
And then certificate of completion of the Fire Command 1A and 1B.
Yes.
Is that okay, Mr. Abkarian? Can we make those changes, Mr. Doyle?
Okay, and then you had a question from Chief. Chief, did you remember the question now?
I think so, but if I can just try to clear this up a bit. We've taken a strategic approach into what classes that we're going to be requiring for all of our promoted positions. As Mr. Doyle said, it's been very challenging finding candidates without coming to you and asking for modifications of the bulletin to get qualified candidates to take our promotional exams. Even with what we have here today, we still exceed what most departments require today. And if I could just review some of the courses to give you an idea and hopefully a bit of understanding for what we're doing here. In our CICCS courses, our Strike Team Leader courses, and our Engine Boss courses, for example.
Where are they here on this?
Under the Battalion Chief, if you go under the Battalion Chief area, and I'll just use this as an example. The CICCS Strike Team Leader, be qualified as a trainee, that means you have to have already taken a series of courses that are qualified by the state, and that's in order to take strike teams out on brush fires and different things like that. We didn't list all the specific classes, only the classes that are in addition to the state's requirements that we're asking for, and that's actually a higher level than what we're asking for. But if you look at the command series, the 2A, 2B, and 2C, the command series, the 2A level, that's the management of large-scale fires, and we think that's important for our community, for our new battalion chiefs to have that or to require that on future exams. And the 2B is the management of large-scale hazardous materials incidents, which we have a potential for in Glendale, and the 2C is the management of high-rise incidents. And those are important to us because all those different courses will affect our community. The two classes that we removed from the command level are the disaster preparedness and the wildland component. We're going to get the wildland component in another capacity with the state's wildland training training classes. It's not the exact 2E class, but you will get your wildland component that we're comfortable with our battalion chiefs having. And if you look at the management series, for example, the 2B and the 2C, one of those classes is personnel and labor relations, which we think is very important, and the other one is financial management. Each of those are 40-hour courses, and that's why we offset that. If a person receives a bachelor's degree, they will not have to have those courses because you get those courses in alignment with receiving your bachelor's degree. So those are some of the things that we're looking at. We tried to take a strategic approach here in making sure we hit the items that were important, and we went through our labor market survey, and even going through that, these classes are still a higher level than what's required by our labor market cities.
I'm sorry. The survey that was just handed to us, Stuart, is it possible in the future for us to get a copy of that with our packet?
Certainly.
Because it's really hard to digest all of that in one.
Mr. Chairman, I just whispered to, and I'll say it, there's just a lot of stuff here, and a lot of asking and a lot of changes, and, we have a responsibility to know exactly what it is we're being asked to do and what to compare. And I'm with Mr. Manukian. We're handed this today. I can't even understand. There's so many changes that and very nice of you to list them, but in one instance, the battalion chief were that long, and I don't even know where we're changing all of this. And I I have a lot of questions that I think I'd like to be able to study this and know exactly what we're doing. That and because and I know you know this, Chief Scoggins, this commissioner, and I know the rest of us have been tremendously supportive of what you've done, and you've done a lot. You've made some changes. We've already had some line changes you've asked for, so we're not supporting you, but I at least have a due diligence to know exactly what we're doing, so that nobody can say that we're not doing the best job we can do for our citizens. I'm uncomfortable voting on this with all of these changes. My question would be, if this were to go over until the December meeting or the January meeting, is that a problem? Do you need to fill these positions?
If I can answer that question, yes, we do need to fill positions. Right now, we have one current battalion chief's position open, and we have another one coming open December 8th. So that's going to put us in a challenging position at our management level.
Let me just chime in here, if I may. I'm looking at the changes, and there are a number of changes.
Yes.
I don't know what the deletion of 5 and 2B and 7A and 7B is. My understanding is these changes are being made specifically to concentrate on courses that are extremely important for our management to have in the city of Glendale.
Yes.
And there are courses here that are not specifically necessary for a battalion chief, for example, to have as they do their job here in the city of Glendale. Is that correct?
That would be correct.
And if another city is to borrow, and my understanding is they do, from city of Glendale, and to use them in a different county or different city, having this certificate would suffice for them to be able to do their job properly as a person going to the other cities?
Well, each community has their specific needs, and we try to address the needs that we have here in our community. And the examples that I gave you on the command series, the entire series is five different 40-hour classes. We've pulled out 3 of them that we think are important here: management of large-scale incidents, management of large-scale hazardous materials incidents, and management of high-rise incidents.
Name them on here. Is it 2C, 2B?
The 2A is the management of large-scale fires.
Okay.
The 2B is the management of hazardous materials incidents, and the 2C is the management of high-rise incidents on the command side.
Now, are they required right now?
Yes. Yes.
So now you're saying, okay, for the 2A, excuse me, may I continue, Mr. Okay. For the 2A, it's required now. We want to wait until December 31. We're going to say, okay, you can come in, but you got to complete it by December 31, 2008. Which completion, that's got to have been done by now, I would think. For 2B, it's 2009, and 2C, it's 2010.
Correct.
And before it was required, all 3 were required before you could become a fire battalion chief.
Well, there was a step-in scale, and where we were exactly in that scale, I'm not sure. I don't have that in front of me, but all 5 classes on the command series were required. Just like on the management side, there's 5 classes on the management side: management 2A, 2B, 2C, 2D, and 2E. The 2 that we pulled out of there that we think are appropriate here for the community of Glendale are the financial management piece and the personnel and labor relations piece. Each of those classes, the management 2B and the 2C, are both 40-hour classes, and they will give our managers some specific training in financial management and personnel and labor relations, and we think those 2 were important out of that series. The other side, there were 5 of those also, so we pulled out the 2 that we thought were important.
When you say pulled out, you mean we're no longer taking them?
No, we're asking for those 2, but we're not asking for management 2A, management 2D, and management 2E.
All due respect, I'm sorry. I'm just really confused. There's a lot here. I'm not prepared to vote on it. I'm
Chief,
sorry.
Sorry, is that okay?
Yeah.
Chief, if we can get you an answer by December 10th meeting, is that really going to throw you off? Because I understand we're trying to digest all of this, and I think it was just crammed in together and not giving us enough data to be able to digest all of it. As Commissioner Gantis said, we're with you 100%.
Mm-hmm.
We appreciate all the effort and everything that you've done, but we want to be going the right direction with you and if we can have time to digest this until December, our next meeting, I think, Commissioner Gantis, would that be enough time for you to
It
be
would
able
be
to
fine.
digest?
What I don't know is,
It takes a lot for Gantis to digest anything.
At least I wore ties.
Don't go there, don't go there.
That's true.
No, I'm here, you want to go forward, and I know we have a battalion chief, and if we can go back and reconstruct it to get that out of here with the exceptions you need. But the problem here is you're telling me Command 2A, Management 2B, and I see it all here, but I don't know what that is.
Gotcha.
There's no explanation of it, and with all due respect, again, I know you know this, we're behind you. I'm always behind you.
Yes.
I would never, but I have a fiduciary obligation to make sure that if there's something not being done, and I'm understanding we are asking for lesser standards, those may be correct, but I got to know exactly what it is. We don't need the financial thing, or we don't need it till 2010. Why? Well, because this is not required in these cities, and we want to put it off so we can keep our people going, but we're going to get them on. I mean, and there's so many of the different ones here, I can't get just a blanket one. I need a specific direction on that. At least I do. I don't know about the rest of them. I think I'm hearing Mr. Mnuchin say the same thing. But I want to get you what you need. We don't want to slow down what the progress is. If we need a battalion chief, let's create a job bulletin that allows that.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I mean, if I could suggest, because the next item is the bulletin for battalion chief. Perhaps as a compromise, you could consider this and approve that bulletin, and then we can go back a month from now and spend a little more time, and we can provide you more information.
And what if we don't approve
the
it?
others.
Then your bulletin's a waste of time.
Well, if you would approve, if you approve this bulletin, that would approve it as amended, essentially, but it wouldn't permanently change the specification for fire battalion chief until you vote on the specification.
That means
at a
that it
later
would be
date.
approved on it. I would basically have it approved for 90 days and void after 90 days or something like that. So you can actually do one hiring with this bulletin, and then afterwards you have to come back after 90 days or whatever date that we set it to come in and revise it. However, somebody will be hired with this specification at that point in the city of Glendale. And if you, for battalion chief, and if you by any chance decide that this is not what you like, then you have some major problems.
Well, why don't we look at the battalion chief, see how much
But we're not on,
is...
yeah, but we're not there yet.
No, I
We
know
have to
that.
read it
I
in the
know.
record.
It's consistent with, I believe it's consistent with what's been put forth
Okay,
on these
let me
specifications.
just do a quick note. Why don't we move from number 7,
To number...
I'm sorry, what are we doing? On number 8 to actually number 9. We'll come back to number 8 again and see what we want to do with that.
So we're going to, I would make a motion that we take out of, or that we pause, or...
No, you take out of order number 8, put it in number 9's, number 8's position, and then we come back to number 8 after number 9. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a second?
We need to have it read into the record. She needs to read it in. Yes. Now she needs to read it in. Number 9.
Job bulletin for approval, fire battalion chief.
We're tabling number 8 right now, okay? That's what we're doing. Tabling number 8 until we come back to it.
Correct.
Okay, let's go to fire battalion chief number 9.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, this is a bulletin for fire battalion chief. As Chief Scoggins has said, I have a current opening right now, and as of December 8th, we'll have a second opening for battalion chief. This item is being brought before you because it is a sworn safety position per the rules. These all do come before the Civil Service Commission for review. As I understand it, this bulletin is in the format which would deviate from the existing specification. It has the education experience requirements that were proposed as was in item number 8.
So this would be then a request that we deviate from the existing standards.
Correct. As is
I guess
currently
my
adopted
question
today.
would be, since we don't have Mr. Braden and/or his successor, although I see a potential successor in the audience, that whether or not the notice adequately allows us to do this without considering the first the changes in the specs, because we're not asking for a deviation, we're asking for approval. But it seems to me that if we're asking for it and it's in there, it's within the penumbra of what we can discuss. We're not we're asking to approve this particular job bulletin. I think it's okay. I haven't heard anybody disputing that. But I just bring that up because it may not be something under the Brown Act that we can do, but I think we can.
Yeah, we are asked to consider the entire job bulletin and all the consequences that come with it. So the fact that we're considering a deviation from a actual classification, I think it would be fine. So, yes, Mr. Mayor.
Chief, is there a way we could just real quickly go over the main changes that are going to be affecting this class specification for the battalion chief?
For the class spec, back to number 7 or the bulletin?
No, the bulletin.
How does this
Would
bulletin,
impact the
No,
bulletin.
I'm not going back.
how this bulletin differs from the class specifications that are currently in effect, because we didn't consider any changes?
Thank you.
Is that what you want?
I'm glad you guys are communicating with that.
From the current class spec.
Well, basically, we have here, I'll read to you, from what I understand, you're deleting S336 and S390. What are those?
How do you know that?
Deleted
fine,
S336 and 390. What's an S336 and 390?
S336 and 390 are wildland classes, and one would be on fire behavior, and the other would be on, if you're out in the wildland, on different things that you need to look out and watch out for. The exact title for, I can't recall right now, but I do have the current job specs in front of me right now. And what we've done in that CICCS requirement, which is the California Incident Command Certification System, we feel with those requirements that are required by the state and with the extra classes that we've added, we're going to cover all of our brush and wildland classes. S336 and S390 are high-level brush and wildland classes. So those would be affected by the current change in the bulletin. And also,
Now it says you delete Command 5. What is that?
delete command.
Deleted 5. Right here.
Oh,
Bring it down here. It says
I can't see. I can't
anything 5 or
understand.
something, maybe.
Where's the...
There's too
Okay.
many deletions here.
Well,
You know what? Let's just bring this.
That's 2005? Yeah. Okay, here's what, in a nutshell, what's taking place here. We're at the end of our current phase-in period from when we came before you in 2004. And that phase-in period required a number of S and I series classes, which are the S are the wildland classes, and the I are the incident command type classes. And it also required many of the management type classes from the fire service perspective and the command series classes that I talked about earlier. We're at the end of that right now. If December 31st, 08, what is currently required in the spec would be S301, S336, S390, the Command 2A, 2B, many of the management classes. The only thing that is not required at this point would be the Management 2B and 2C, which we're covering later. So we've removed the Command 2A, 2B, 2C, 2D, and the Management 2A, but we put them currently.
From this job bulletin that we're talking
From this
about.
job bulletin, what we're talking about, but we put them later on in the job bulletin. A part of the problem is qualified candidates with the current job spec. We don't have qualified candidates to take an exam, and that's why we've been working with the Glendale Firefighters Association, looking at what all the other departments out there are requiring, and we brought before you what we think are more realistic expectations, and they're still higher than most agencies out there.
So if I understand correctly, is we're not necessarily eliminating those requirements, we're just putting them aside, that giving them a chance to be able to take those requirements at a later date.
Yes, and we're backing them up. We're backing up a couple of them because we're coming up on December 31st, 08, and we're backing up more in this new job spec that we actually talked about before.
Can we do this where it says within 12 months you will get this, within 24 months you will get this, within 36 months this way? Then you don't have to keep coming back in here on different dates and keep telling us to give you update, because, in 2009, we got to update this again. Because then the job bulletin is going to read effective December 31st, 2008. Well, that's no longer valid. You have to come
Actually,
in.
I don't think back to the job spec, if you approved it, we wouldn't have to come
effective
back
December
before you
1st.
again.
Never mind.
And that's what we're trying to do here, so we don't have to keep coming back
Yeah, I
before
got it,
you
I got it,
each time we give a fire engineers and fire
Effective,
captain's
okay,
exam.
I'm sorry, I apologize. My mistake. Yes, Mr. Gannon.
So let me understand this then.
Yes,
On this job bulletin that we have in front of us,
Yes.
you're asking for the 2A, 301 and Management 1, and the 2A and I-400, which I'm comparing it to what the proposed standard is, the earlier one. I'm just going to ask a question. At some point, if we were to consider the previous one, 2B and Management 2C would need to be completed effective December 30th. I guess my question is this: if we don't hire somebody by December 31, 2008,
2A,
do we have to redo the job bulletin because of what we may do on December 10th?
It
with
is
the specs?
effective as of December 31st. So
Yes,
anything
if-
past that, you're okay.
right, if we don't
have it.
open up a bulletin before December 31st, 2008, Command 2A and I-400 now come into play as a part of the requirements.
Because they're required under the new ones, if we were to look at them, because they're required under, by 2008. Is that right?
208.
December 31st, 2008, if you get hired after that date, you must have in your possession a Command 2A and an I-400 before you can actually become a
Yes,
chief. Okay.
that's correct.
So this will get you through the first, with if we were to approve this job bulletin, which was really a change in the current specs, it gets you through the one.
One exam.
And then theoretically, the next time you're going to bring us another fire bulletin.
Well, we always have to bring the fire bulletin.
But we're going to get another one for December 10th because we have an opening December 8th.
Well, no, we'll do one exam and hopefully fill both positions with that one exam. We create a list and...
But this one covers everything with the new specs in mind.
If you approve the bulletin.
If this bulletin is approved.
Now, what are we not, and then let me ask this then, what are we not requiring in this bulletin that we would have required under the specs that currently exist?
Under the specs that currently exist, and I will just go through, December 31st, 2005, we required S301, S336, and S390,
What are those?
which are high-level wildland firefighting classes.
Okay.
The offset to that currently in the job spec that we're currently bringing before you is CICCS, California Incident Command Certification System Trainee, which means that you have taken all the necessary courses to take a strike team of engines or anything else out into the wildland and operate efficiently and effectively and be safe in that environment. So you would be removing those. Command 2A, 2B also was required in December 31st, 2005. Command 2A is large-scale incident management. Command 2B is the hazardous materials management, large-scale incidents. We're backing that up right now. A part of the problem here is we don't have qualified candidates who have these classes. So that's why we're backing it up. But in the meantime, we have a current need to fill positions. And I do believe that we have qualified people inside of our organization. They may not have these classes right now, but they're qualified people, and they will do a good job for the community and the city of Glendale.
Okay, Chief, let me just make sure that that you understand and everyone else understand. We don't actually tailor job specs to fit the employees who want to get those jobs.
Right.
Okay, let's make that very clear. I mean, I don't want there to be any notion that we basically try to tailor our job specifications so a person who is underqualified could actually get the job. And we're not doing that in this instance.
Right.
Correct?
Correct.
All we're doing is substituting a requirement with a different requirement that actually covers almost the same type of training.
No, that's not totally true.
No, here, let me try to clarify this. If I understand correctly, the requirements aren't changing. All we're doing is giving them additional time to obtain those certificates, correct? Or is that not the case?
Well, it's yes and no. It's
Okay.
giving additional time on specific classes, but
Correct.
it's also removing classes also. And one of the classes, for example, that was required in '07 would be Command 2C, Command 2D, and Management 2A. Now, Command 2C is high-rise incident management.
Okay,
Now, that one we're backing up.
okay,
Command 2D is disaster planning. We're
Okay.
taking that one out.
okay.
So that is a removal. The other one, we're backing up. So
Okay.
I'm trying to give you an example of what we're doing. We've taken a strategic approach to what we're trying to do here, and we're targeting the classes that we think our managers will need in the position of battalion chief.
Mr. Kansas?
These specs have been in effect since 2004. It's a promotional job bulletin. Why haven't these classes been taken?
Commissioner Gansas, I can't answer that question for you.
Well, then I'm not prepared to support this.
I can give you a few reasons why. Some of these classes are very difficult to obtain. They're given throughout the state of California, and they're not given on a regular basis. So it becomes a bit
They give them
challenging.
once every 4 years?
No, they give them more than once every 4 years.
You know,
But
that argument might really fly if you're only giving them once a year or once every 2 years, but if you're giving them 4 or 5 times a year,
well, all of them are not given 4 or 5 times a year. Most of them are given 2 or 3 times a year, and they could rotate from Northern California to Southern California. And it's a 40-hour course 5 days in a row, so if it's in Northern California, you'd have to go up to...
Ms. Scoggins, it's a good explanation. I like your attitude. It doesn't fly with me. In 4 years, you have a chance. I don't care if it's northern or southern. In 3 years, you'll get it down here somewhere, and I'm sure the fire department is not going to prevent anyone from going and getting those certificates, correct? During regular hours?
Well, it's up to an employee to have their own time off to go and get these classes. We don't let employees off of work to go and get these classes. And when you're on the shift schedule, the 24-on, 24-hour schedule, it could cause a few more difficulties in getting off to get these classes. I'm not creating excuses for you. I'm just trying to let you in on the reality of where we're at
The
right now.
reality is, this isn't something, you've come to us on certain specific occasions. I remember them. And I don't remember a lot of stuff. When you get to be 60, you don't remember a lot of stuff.
70.
You come, no, 60, thank you, don't overage me. But I remember you saying, we have had trouble with this class in a specific instance. This is a battalion chief. I know one thing, and I've talked to firemen, I've talked to you and I have had to... This is a commitment, and Lord knows I appreciate it. I think you know how supportive I am of I love the fire department, okay? I love what you do. But people that want to move up the ladder, they are committed to doing it, and they know their classes. They've had 4 years, and we want to make this promotional. I got to tell you, I just don't know what's there's nothing that's telling me. I'm not being convinced that they couldn't, that the people that want to do, these people think way in advance of what they're going to do. Joanne Davis came to us when we had that whole incident with the women, and she laid out everything, what she wanted to do and what she's thought about. I listened to all of this, and unfortunately, Chief, this isn't passing muster with me, because, Buster, that was cute, wasn't it? Because these fine folks, and they are, know way in advance what they're going to do. 4 years we've had these requirements. This isn't a surprise to anybody. And now we're saying, no, we don't want them because these people just haven't taken the courses. And there's nothing here that explains to me, gee, I tried, I couldn't get in this course, I applied here, et cetera. And not that we need to see who the individuals are because they have a right to their privacy. But there's nothing here, and I'm just not prepared to vote for this. Either the job bulletin, or if we ever considered, not yet. You could convince me by December 10th, but not now.
Well, I think one important point to be made is we've modified the spec to try to meet the needs on specific classes. Each of these classes, most of them written here, are 40-hour classes. The ones, we didn't modify the classes to remove classes because individuals did not want to go and take the classes. That was not our approach when we sat down and looked at the reasons why we went through our job spec and modified this. Our approach was what do we feel our managers need? And as we compared it to many other cities, and I'll just read you the cities that were involved in our survey: Anaheim, Burbank, Garden Grove.
We have that.
Okay.
Tell us specifically what you're referring to.
We just got that today, just as a
See, that's the point. We
clarification.
just got it handed to us.
Okay. My point is, when we compared it to all of our labor market cities and our Area C cities in Los Angeles County and city fire departments, even with the modifications that we've made with our job spec, we far exceed most in all of those cities. So
You exceed
the point
Burbank?
is, we tried to make it
Burbank?
relevant. Excuse me?
You exceed Burbank?
Do we exceed Burbank?
No, because the fire battalion chief needs 60 semester units in fire science, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes, we will exceed Burbank at the end of the implementation phase. We will
2010.
exceed, excuse me?
By 2010.
Yes, we will exceed Burbank. Burbank requires 60 semester units in fire science and public administration, not an AA degree, but 60 units, and permanent appointment as a fire captain by the filing date. So we will exceed Burbank.
We don't require an AA degree. We
Well,
just require high school.
As we move down the
No.
spec,
Today, we're talking
Today.
only about this job bulletin today.
Okay.
This job bulletin that I see, maybe I'm wrong, Chief,
right,
does not exceed Burbank. This
today, right, yes.
Well, see, that, again, this is something that you've known about for 4 years. The fine men and women of our fire department have known about it. If they want to be a battalion chief, this is not something we implemented last year. 4 years they've known what they needed to do. And they generally will do it.
Chief,
I'm sorry, I'm not prepared to vote for this.
Mr. Manukian, how do you feel?
Well, I hear all sides, and I think, Chief, as you've heard it loud and clear. We're behind you 100%, but we need time to digest this. And honestly, I know you need this urgently, but I think give us until December 10th meeting and give us all the data so we can actually sit there and go through a lot of this stuff. And we're not questioning what you're saying, but it's very hard for us to look at the requirements of all the cities when right before the meeting we get one copy of, and you guys have done all this hard work. At least give us the benefit of being able to just go through it. And I guarantee you, I shouldn't say I guarantee you, but most likely we'll be able to see the light exactly how you see it. But just give us time to digest it. I don't know, Mr. Gantis, Sheriff Gary.
I don't like to say that. I'm concerned about are we handcuffing our...
No, all we're saying is give us until December 10th to review this then.
All right. Let me just
Mr.
let me just
Chair.
let me just look at this, Chief. Battalion chief, how much is somebody acting as battalion chief now?
No,
Fire battalion chief?
no,
There's no acting fire battalion chief now.
no.
So if we don't approve this, you basically have to wait until December 10th before you can even consider hiring someone after December 10th.
I'm only hiring. just
Opening
putting
up
it
a
out.
bulletin, yes.
Putting out the
How many
bulletin.
positions?
Okay, I'm not ready to do that. Okay, John, with all due respect to both of you guys, I think that it makes no sense for us. We can look at these requirements later on and modify them just to ensure that we have, and the chief knows how we feel about this, so I don't think that he's going to, anyway, but I want to approve the actual bulletin today as an exception
I don't.
to the rule. And,
I can.
I can't.
Not-
either.
I can.
okay, let me just hand you the gavel. I'm going to go ahead and move that under an exception that we will actually approve the fire battalion chief bulletin, and that the actual class specification come back to us in our
We
next.
can't deal with class spec because we have to bring that up later.
I'm sorry?
So we're only talking
Okay,
about
right.
motion
That the
to approve the bulletin?
bulletin as an exception to the current class specification.
I second that.
Could we have roll call, please?
Commissioner Gantis?
No.
Commissioner Manukian?
Yes.
Sheriff Carrihan?
Yes. let's go back to class specifications. And Chief, basically what
We need to go put that back on the sheets and read it back on the record.
go ahead and read that back on the record, please.
Revised class specification for approval, fire engineer, fire captain, and fire battalion chief.
My recommendation would be that we would actually bring this back on December 10th for
Is there a
further
motion
review.
for that?
Hold
Yes.
on. Let me just make my recommendation, then
Yeah.
you can actually do the motion. Recommendation is that we bring this back on December 10th when we actually have more of our commission here and then discuss it. Meanwhile, please bring us comparisons saying A, B, and C equals whatever it is. This way, then we will feel more comfortable doing that at that point. Is there a motion to move this to our next meeting?
Yes,
Mr. Menuchyan, motion to move this to December 10th?
December 10 meeting.
Second.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second to bring this back. Could we have roll call, please?
Commissioner Gantis? Commissioner Menuchyan?
Yes.
Chair Carnahan?
Yes,
Mr. Chair, we'll do just that. Also, we'll make sure that there'll be some type of coding of what these classes mean,
Please.
2A, 2B, and
And
all
also
that.
what
just so
all
you
the
can-
other cities' requirements
And-
to what you just gave us.
And we will provide copy of the survey that was conducted.
All right, give us a little bit
amongst the
more
other cities.
explanation that delete it. And then one more, okay, yeah, that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next item, please.
Public hearing, entry-level classifications.
Mr. Doyle?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, what we have are three separate public hearings. They don't have to be very lengthy public hearings, but these are resolutions that we try to bring back to you annually. I say we try. The one prior to this was in June of 2007. The one prior to that, I think, was in 2003. But I'm hoping to get it on a regular annual basis. The first one deals with entry-level classifications.
Mr. Doyle,
Yes, sir.
before you actually go into it, again, because we have two commissioners that are absent, and Mon might still be absent in December, but because Mr. Devine is not here, my recommendation would be to postpone this until next time. I remember what happened when I wasn't here, or I was here and didn't understand this, and we actually passed it, and then I knew what the consequences were. My recommendation would be to postpone this to December 10th as well, so we have a better understanding as to what we're actually doing and what we're moving out of class specification, what we're putting. All three of them would be my recommendation, but
I agree.
Is anyone have any problems? I think Mr. Devine and Mr. Coleman should be here when we're looking at this item.
Does this need to be done now, Mr. Chairman?
No, this can be put off.
Actually, instead of December 10th, could we postpone this to January? I know Mr. Coleman might not be here in December, so if we can just do it in the first week in January.
Mr. Coleman won't be here in December.
Won't be here in December. That's the reason that I say let's postpone this until January.
Wait a minute, let's see what we have on January's.
We can postpone to January 14th.
There's nothing.
Nothing?
There we go.
Yeah.
Is there a motion to postpone?
So we're on number 10 right now.
10, 11, and 12, all three of them to be moved.
I think they all have to be read in the record, Mr. Chairman. Could we ask her to read them into the record, and then we can...
To read them all into record, 11 and 12 in the record, 10 is already read.
Public hearing, 12-month probationary period classifications, and public hearing unclassified hourly part-time classifications and positions.
We're moving 10, 11, and 12 to January 14th.
So moved.
Second.
And can we have roll call, please?
Commissioner Gantis?
Yes.
Commissioner Menuchyan?
Yes.
Chair Carnahan?
Yes. What's next?
Agenda forecast.
Mr. Chair, agenda forecast is listed for you. As you know, the November 26th meeting is canceled. The next meeting will be December the 10th, at which we're bringing back the fire promotional class specification series. And we had some discussion about rule amendments.
So, again, just to make sure that we have all commissioners here, I recommend that we move that consideration for rule amendment to January 14 as well.
Why don't we do that in 28th, since the 14th might take us some
Okay,
time.
the 28, if that's okay with everyone.
Yes.
Do we need a motion for that, or do we just move it?
I think we can
Because
just move
that's
it.
a projected
Agenda.
agenda, right? We don't have to do that. So just move that to the 28th, please. So on the December 10th, we should have a light agenda, I'm hoping.
Yeah.
Anything else?
That's it.
Okay, what's next?
Reports and information, past due employee performance evaluation.
Gantis, do you want to do the honors?
Okay, we have no past dues for the city clerk's office, city's treasurer's office, development services, finance, fire, Glendale Water and Power, human resources, planning, police, and public works. We're getting back up to a goodly number that aren't on past dues. Congratulations to those departments.
Thank you. And
And I don't think we have any thirds. We have no thirds.
No thirds.
And really, 1 second and no thirds. That's pretty good.
What's next?
Civil Service Commission and our staff comments.
Any comments?
Good luck, Roy.
Roy, we'll see you soon, hopefully no later than January. Next,
I'm warming his seat.
Session.
no closed session items.
Move to adjourn.
Adjourn.